NFL season is now officially over. We have both conferences set up. We're gonna dive into the AFC first. For starters, Jaguars, Chargers in the 4 versus 5 game. Who you got?
I gotta say, I've been rolling with the Jaguars. I think that the Chargers are a really talented team. They always choke in the playoffs. They never do anything in the playoffs. So I'm gonna go with the Jaguars. The Jaguars looked absolutely atrocious against the Tennessee Titans, but they still pulled it out. Their defense, their D line especially, has been really, really good. And I just like Trevor Lawrence a lot. I mean, I know everyone likes Justin Herbert. I just think that Trevor Lawrence is going to get it done. Their wide receivers are very quick, and I just think that the Chargers in Jacksonville are going to choke it somehow.
I mean, yeah, I feel like there are a lot of people riding on that Jags, kind of like, oh, they're no good bandwagon. And it's time to hop off that. Let's be real. I mean, the Chargers, Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, they really started to figure it out towards the end of the year when they were healthy. So I feel like the Chargers, maybe not an easy pick, but I feel like they will be able to pull it off, especially being away from LA. It could be difficult for them, but I still feel like they get the dub at the end of the day. Being an Oregon
Early in
fan,
the year, earlier in the year, the Jags beat them 38-10 in LA, and they
yes.
just absolutely destroy them. I know it doesn't correlate like that, but I don't know. The Chargers, they always disappoint you. Like they always like the Chargers definitely on their by their roster definitely have a better team. I mean, the talent
Yeah.
on that roster is insane. They added a ton of pieces to their defense. They have Justin Herbert, who's an absolute stud. Williams and Keenan Allen are just great wide receivers, but like they always seem to underperform and they always seem to lose big games. And it just I don't know. I don't in Jacksonville, I think that might. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. I guess I just like the momentum that I've seen from the Chargers, especially going into the latter half of the season. I mean, once they finally got their players all together and all on the same page, they've really been able to come up with some pretty good games and some pretty good scores. I mean, this week, their game against the Broncos, obviously, the Broncos have been an interesting team at the end of the year. So like that was a tough game for them, but I just feel like the Chargers against the Jags, I just feel like the Chargers are going to get away with it. Not easily, but I just feel like it'll be close up until like the third quarter. And then I can see the Chargers just running away with the game at that point because,
Your score prediction?
score prediction, um, score prediction, I'll probably go. I don't think it'll be too high scoring. I don't see either team scoring more than 30 points, but I can see it being like 27-20 to the Chargers.
Yeah. I'm gonna say 27-24 Jags. I think there's gonna be a few field goals. I don't think these offenses are good enough to just absolutely dominate the game. So I'm just gonna go 27-24 Jags.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, and then yeah,
I think that's it for that game. And then next we got Bengals versus the Ravens, round three of the season.
Bengals Ravens, yeah.
Big rivalry, AFC North rivalry.
And
So
they just
who do you got for
played.
that? They just played.
Look, if Lamar is healthy, the Ravens are gonna win. I mean, to be fair. Like I watched the way the Ravens played against the Bengals with their third string quarterback, and the Ravens didn't really look all that bad. Like, yes, Anthony Brown threw, I think he threw for 2 interceptions, but they still were within 2 scores of the Bengals. And I just feel like the Bengals being at home, having Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase finally back on the roster, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, all healthy. The fact that they could only put, what was it, like 27 points past them, I just feel like that's pretty disappointing. And I feel like going into the playoffs, Jim Harbaugh has, he's been in this situation before, whereas the Bengals, they've only been to the playoff, or Joe Burrow in particular, have only been to the playoff once, and that was last year. And I feel like throughout this year, we've kind of learned that the Bengals really aren't the team that they were last year somehow, just even though they had the same exact team that they had last year. I just haven't seen the same, I haven't seen the same eager to win the games like I did last year. And last year I had them going to the Super Bowl against the Rams. So can definitely see the Ravens winning, but only if Lamar Jackson is healthy, because I feel like Lamar Jackson is what ties that team together. And if it's not him, then I will pick the Bengals if Lamar is not starting.
I don't care if Lamar Jackson's healthy, in MVP form, not healthy. The Bengals are winning this game next week. I don't care what anyone says. Joe Burrow is the truth. He is that guy. I don't think that any quarterback in the league besides Patrick Mahomes, I would take Joe Burrow over any quarterback in the league but Patrick Mahomes. I just he is so clutch. I mean, Josh Allen might have more talent than him, but in crunch time, you don't want anyone else more than Joe Burrow. I know that this week 18 game was pretty close, closer than it should have been, but this game is going to be in Cincinnati. The Bengals have a ton of momentum, just like playing really well at the end of the year. And the Ravens, I don't know, you can never trust them. They lose a ton of close games, they blow big leads, and if you get a lead on Joe Burrow, the game's not over. Joe Burrow can easily come back. He came back against the Chiefs. He came back against the Titans. He's the comeback king, honestly, in the NFL. So I don't think you can trust the Ravens in this game. I know the Ravens have a really good defense that's playing really well, but Lamar Jackson hasn't been healthy in a long time. Even if he is healthy, their offense isn't that dynamic. It's a run first offense, and they have some good tight. They have Mark Andrews as a really good tight end, but they don't have a lot of like dynamic wide receivers. And I just think that the Bengals having T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, I mean, that's just a great offense. The receivers are great. Joe Mixon's been running the ball well. The defense sometimes can get pressure, which is good, but it struggles sometimes. But even with the bad offensive line of the Bengals, I still think that the Bengals are going to beat the Ravens. And I just think that the Bengals are poised for another run. If I mean, it's going to be tough going to Buffalo, but I still think that the Bengals have a lot in the tank.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, like the Bengals are like still a really good team, but the four losses that they have are very questionable. One of those being
Yeah,
against the Ravens and another one
yeah,
being against the Browns. Like in
yeah.
division, they struggle sometimes because they also lost to the Steelers in the first game of the season. Don't even forget about that. So,
They're kind of
it
coming on of late. Like in the end of the year, they ended the year very strong,
yeah.
whereas the Ravens are kind of limping into the playoffs. They're playing decent football, but like they haven't had they're limping in the playoffs because they're hurt. Not
Mhm.
necessarily like they're not like playing terrible for the players that they have on the field, but they're limping into the playoffs because they've been hurt. They've had their third string quarterback starting all these games. They just lost
Yeah.
to the Steelers, then they lost to the Bengals. And even you look at the past, the Bengals in their first year with Joe Burrow in the playoffs made it to the Super Bowl, and the Ravens had Lamar Jackson with his MVP season, lost in the first round to the Titans. They have not done well in the postseason over Lamar Jackson's career, and I think that it's partially just the construction of the team that they have. Like their quarterback is not a great thrower of the football. Like he's a very good runner, and he
Yeah.
does that really well, but he doesn't control the offense enough to get timely third downs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my bigger upset just because, I guess I could be a little biased towards Lamar Jackson. I like the way he plays, but it would be I if I saw like the Ravens go into the game and just like get out early, I wouldn't really be surprised. It's mainly the reason why I'm picking the Ravens, but I
Ravens
just
might take the Ravens might take a lead. I could see the Ravens definitely taking a lead and
yeah.
controlling the game for at the beginning. I just think that at the end of the game, even if the Bengals are down, I think that Joe Burrow will lead them to victory because he that's just what he does. And you can see the Ravens, they always blow big leads because they can get out and but they're not good at controlling the end of the game because even though they run the ball very well with Dobbins and of course Lamar Jackson, if you need like if you have a 3rd and 5 and you need to throw the ball, you can't really trust him to do that as compared to other quarterbacks like Mahomes or Brady or Burrow or other guys. He's not bad at it. It's just that you don't trust him as much as other guys.
Yeah. Next game is the 2 versus 7 seed. We've got the Dolphins being the 7 seed against the Bills. I mean,
Oh,
the Dolphins a couple weeks ago,
yeah.
maybe this is a contest, but with all the injuries, with all the miscommunications, I mean, I watched a portion of the Jets Dolphins game and
Ugly game. Ugly
everyone is
game.
just,
Oh
off
God.
sync. So I feel like it's safe to say Bills are going to win this one. Maybe, I think it's unfair towards the Dolphins to say that they'll win by a lot. But yeah, I mean, you'd kind of be crazy to go against the Bills on this one. They just look different out there. And
Yeah.
with everything that has been going on with DeMar Hamlin, I heard it on the TV today. It's like, you're not only playing against the Bills, you're playing against the rest of the world. And the Patriots came into that knowing and they didn't do all that bad, to be fair.
They
And I
played
was
well.
actually
The Patriots actually played pretty good.
I was surprised that the Patriots kept it that close, but the Bills, I feel like, in such a dark moment in their season has really shed light to a new chapter. And it could lead them to, great things by the end of the postseason. But for this game in particular, Bills Dolphins, I'm taking Bills all the way.
Yeah, no, I think in my opinion, this game's not even going to be a contest. This is going to be a Bills blowout. I mean, you look at what happened. Tua's probably not going to play in the playoffs. He had already 3 concussions this year. It would be very risky to put him on the field. If Tua doesn't start and they have either Thompson, I think that's probably who's going the starter is going to be for Miami. If they have Thompson as the quarterback, the Bills are just going to absolutely trounce the Miami Dolphins. I mean, we saw the Bills, or we just saw the Bills today, and they played a very good game against the Patriots. They made some mistakes, but they still won. They had 2 kick returns for touchdowns. I mean, the emotion with that team after the Damar Hamlin incident, they galvanized the team. That team is more together than any other team because what they've had, the adversity that they've had to face. And I just think that that's a very strong team. They already were good before the incident. Now with the incident, they're using that as motivation and fuel to win games and just do everything they can to support their teammate. And then on the other side, the Dolphins have looked absolutely terrible at the end of the year. They've just been losing game after game after game. They've lost, I think, like they lost 5 games in a row before this week. They've been really struggling. Tua's hurt. And then you just saw them against today against the Jets, who the Jets have not been playing well either. And for them to win 9-6, or they won 11-6 because of the last second safety, but they couldn't
I
score
don't even
any
know how that
points.
was
Their
safety.
offense, I mean, I would be surprised if the Dolphins score a touchdown against the Bills. I mean, I think I could easily see that game being like 38 to like 7 or 38-6, just Dolphins getting absolutely crushed by the Bills in Buffalo. I think that Josh Allen's going to throw all over them. I know the Dolphins defense has been playing decent, but I just think that the Dolphins offense is way too dynamic for the Dolphins defense. And I just think that the Dolphins offense is going to have no shot against that Bills front in Buffalo, cold temperature, the crowd, the emotion, everything. I think that the Bills are going to absolutely destroy the Dolphins and move on to the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah, couldn't really agree more. It's just one of those games where it's like, it's gonna happen. And
Yeah.
then Chiefs in their bye week, do they lose? Says Patrick Mahomes
Um,
gets injured in the bye week.
he's not. He is gonna be chilling in that bye week prepping. Maybe they'll do some new plays. They had that nice little
Oh my
that
God,
play was
that ring around the
crazy.
Rosie bull crap.
Dude,
Oh
the
my
freaking
God.
I don't
The
know, the snow
Raiders,
globe play. I think they called it the snow globe play or something, but
bro,
I
can we
don't know
just
what.
point out, that the Raiders and the Texans need to be XFL teams next year? I am so sick and tired of watching these god-awful teams show up to their home field and just getting either blown out or doing some of the dumbest plays on planet Earth. First of all, right? Okay, so in the Premier League where they have relegation and promotion, they shout out the same thing. We have the USFL now, and that should be the relegation zone. And a team like the Raiders, they would be better off in the USFL than in the NFL. I am so sick and tired of watching this god-awful team week in and week out with such good like resources and abilities in their receivers and running backs and tight ends, and even their quarterback isn't really all that bad. And the fact that they go into each game every single week and find some way to lose just bothers me. And I hate it so much. But it's not only them, the Texans as well, right? So the Texans are going into their game against the Colts. And the thing is that if they win or if they lose, then they get the number one pick in the draft because the Bears still have 3 wins, but they haven't drawn any games, whereas the Texans had their one tie. So they would go into the draft with the number 1 pick. And for a team like the Texans who don't really have a quarterback, and you've got a guy like Bryce Young, who's most likely going to go first round. Yes, they have Justin Fields at the Bears, so Bears probably aren't going to pick a quarterback first round. They'll probably pick either a receiver or maybe a
Lineman
defensive
probably.
player. Very
Yeah.
unlikely, but the Bears do need a lot of help. But like the Texans, you look at guys like Damian Pierce and oh, that's it, man. You look at Damian Pierce and you go, yeah, the Texans have like some kind of a future, but they need the draft picks in order to support that future. And the fact that for a team that loses so frequently to go into a game where they basically needed to lose and then win by 1 point off of a 28-yard Hail Mary, that bothers me because there is clearly no IQ in that franchise whatsoever. And Lovey Smith was fired from the Bears like 10 years ago, and here he is 10 years later still helping him out. Like I just gotta know. Lovey Smith, what the hell, man? What are you doing, bro? Like, is it a revenge? Like, have they been talking about like letting you go? Like, are you just trying to get some revenge? Because then maybe I can understand. But I thought you and the Texans organization were pretty tight like that. So, yeah, Texans, Raiders, USFL next year. Um, yeah, it should be a 30 team NFL next year because no USFL team should be in the NFL whatsoever. That's why they have the USFL because it's a bunch of college rejects that couldn't make it to the NFL. So, yeah, that is that. Um, any other teams that belong in the USFL? Let me think about this really quick. After the
I kind of
abysmal,
no, leave the Bears in. The Bears have actually played decent this year. They just had some injuries and
they
Justin Fields
have.
got hurt. They lost some close games. Screw the records. I totally agree, dude. The Raiders and the Texans just, oh my God, they're just head scratching every single week. I mean, I can say that the Texans have to be one of the worst organizations in sports based on what they did with Deshaun Watson. Now their owners had a ton of issues. Now you look at this, dude. They have won 2 games out of 16 games the
Well,
whole
now
year. They
three.
were
Well, now
two, they
three.
were
Because God
two
forbid.
13-1. They were 2 13-1 going into this game. Okay. And they had the number one pick locked up if they lost this game. They had it locked up. They had the number one pick, CJ Stroud available, Bryce Young available. They had all these quarterbacks available at the number one pick. Even if they didn't want to use the number one pick, they could have traded the number one pick to another team and gotten another first round pick. So they could have had 2 first round picks, right? They had the number one position. Then what they do is they are down basically at like the last 20 seconds of the game to the Colts, who are also a terrible team, right? And it's just like, just lose the game, just give up. Everyone says, oh, you have to be competitive, you have to try, you have to do this. No, be smart and try to better your organization. But
Yeah.
no,
Like at
the
that
Texans are
point,
too stubborn. The Texans think that they're something special, and they decide to get a touchdown. And not only get a touchdown to tie the game, they go for two and they get the 2 point
yes.
conversion and they
Yes.
win the game. And now the Chicago Bears get the number one overall pick. And the Chicago Bears could be smart and they could trade the number one pick because they don't need a quarterback. They already have a quarterback, and they could trade back and get 2 top 10 picks.
Yep.
Or what they could do is take a stud D lineman. I think Walker from Georgia. I forgot who it is, but the Georgia D lineman is amazing. So they could take him. And now the Texans have the number one pick, but now the Bears have the number one pick. They could easily use it to get 2 first round picks or get a
Yep.
stud D lineman. And
And
it's just like, what are the Texans doing? The Texans have nothing to play for. They've had nothing to play for this whole year because the whole year they've been trash. And then for them to just give away this pick because they wanted to beat the Colts. I mean, what are you proving? You beat the Colts. The Colts are also a crappy team. Now it's just so embarrassing for them. I mean, they can't do anything right. It's like one of those organizations that like the Chiefs can't do anything wrong, dude, the Texans can't do anything right, dude. That organization, poverty organization, so bad, tons of controversy, not smart organization, terrible leadership. I mean, that organization, I can never see them winning anything. Like I can never see the Texans actually being like a Super Bowl contender.
and you know which team could trade up for that number one pick in terms of getting a new quarterback? You know who that team is?
The Colts,
Like it makes
like
no
it's
sense.
they're in your division. They're in your division, and you're basically saying
Exactly.
the Colts are what can have like the third or fourth pick, and they could trade with with the Chicago Bears to get the
Yeah.
number one overall pick. Then they could trade away. Let's say the Bears get that number four overall pick, and then or number three overall pick. They also get a few second round, a few third round. I mean, it's so mind boggling because in the NFL, second, third, and fourth round picks are very valuable. Like you get stud skill position players in the second, third, and fourth round. You get
Yeah.
stud players all the time, tons of draft steals, and for you to just give that away because you wanted to win a game that meant absolutely nothing,
Nothing. Yeah.
it's so mind boggling. Like just sometimes be smart. Like no one's going to want to go to the Texans in free agency. They're not going to trade for anyone because they don't have any resources to trade anything with. So you need to acquire talent through the draft. And what they do is they're like, no, no, no. We're going to win this game. We're going to win this game. That means absolutely
Obviously,
nothing.
yes.
And sacrifice extra resources because the number one pick is worth more than the number two pick. I know they're very close, but the number one pick is literally like 10 or 15% better than the number two pick just based on value because you can trade for it. It's the most desired pick. There's no pick ahead of it. So
Mhm.
it was so dumb. The quarterbacks that are in this class are very good, so you could get a ton for trading that number one pick. I mean, Bryce Young is like one of the most sought after quarterbacks in the NFL draft in like a long time. He's just everyone loves him, even though he's short. But it's just, oh my God, the Texans did it again, man. And I totally agree, dude. screw the Texans. And I know the Raiders had a decent record this year, but screw the Raiders
Yeah, screw
also.
the Raiders
They
as well,
deserve to
man.
just get banished, bro. Those
Yeah.
teams are just absolute trash, bro. I don't know what is
I
going on with
remember
those teams
looking
this
at
year.
the Chiefs Raiders score yesterday at halftime and being like it's 24-3 in
Yeah,
Vegas at halftime. What
like come
is
on, guys.
going wrong? And then I saw that little, ring around the rosy play, and I'm like, oh, that's what's wrong. The Raiders just have no clue what they're doing. Cool,
Just the
got it.
build up and the refs calling a holding on that because the Chiefs scored a touchdown on that play. It's
Bro,
just
if I was the ref, I'd be like, you know what? I didn't see
deserve
anything.
that. You didn't stop
You
that. You
deserve
deserve
that.
it, bro.
Yes.
Get out of here, bro. But it's been crazy, dude. We'll get into the NFC playoff pictures and our overall playoff predictions later, but we just wanted to get into the AFC right now and talk about these poverty franchises like the Texans and Raiders. We already
Get him
roasted the
out.
Raiders before,
Get him
but we gotta
out.
but we gotta roast them again. It's just been embarrassing, but I think
God,
that's gonna wrap it up for right now, and we'll get back to you with the rest of the playoffs later.
I hate some of these NFL teams, man. Jesus Christ. They're it's an embarrassment to society. We literally have the USFL for a reason. Send them there. Nobody cares. They just play for fun in the spring. Oh, goody, fun time. Go there then. Because that's how they play every game. The Raiders just show up. They don't do anything else. Jesus Christ.
And then
Oh
their
my
whole
God.
team is crying after the game. Like, dude, Josh Jacobs is out of there. Derek Carr's out of there. Derek Carr's crying in every press conference. He's so depressed being there. But oh, dude,
I'm really pissed off.
I really want to win games. I really want to win. Doesn't work.
But he cares. We do
Yeah.
not care for your little pity party. Go home and cry. Look yourself in the mirror and say, would I be better off in the USFL? The answer is yes, my brother. The answer is yes. So please go there without a doubt. Oh, just leave. Don't be here anymore. Get traded to the Cowboys. Help me out, if anything. Please. As an Eagles fan,
Oh.
get traded to the Cowboys,
What are the
please.
Jets? Derek Carr to the Jets. That would be perfect.
My God, man. Follow us on our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
TikTok,
Listen to our podcast on Spotify, YouTube. I'm done, man. I'm done. I just can't. I hate some of these teams.